Today, I'm going to talk about a few quick ways that you can improve your on-camera acting. And we're back. Well, this is rather exciting. For some reason, there's a certain something here which has disappeared, and I've no idea why that would be. There we go. That's better. Hello, everybody. My name's Scott Cleverdon, and for the last 20 years, I've been a teacher. I teach film acting. I don't teach theatre acting. I just do film. Nothing else. I'm a classically, you can see I'm a classically trained actor by how good my elocution is. I'm a classically trained actor from the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama. Such a long time ago, it's not called that anymore. It's now called the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. As I always say, why use a French word when we have a perfectly good word in English, which is conservatory? But that's a different question. So here I am today, and what I'm going to talk about is specifically the things that we always tell our actors before we start working with them in our classes, courses, our sessions of coaching. So if you've worked with me, you've probably heard me say a lot of these. Oh, thank you for sending, you sent me 99 stars. Thank you very much, Desiree. That's so very sweet of you. I'm going to put this here so I can have Assumpta over here. There you go, it's much better. One of the things that we do is we always explain to the actors before we start working with them the things that we think are important. Okay, one of the problems that we have as actors, there's a great deal of superstition around what is and isn't important for the actor, particularly on camera. Less is more, do nothing at all of those particular things. Don't blink. There's just one thing after another, and what it does is it ends up confusing everybody and makes us less creative and less connected to what we're going to do. So what I wanted to go through, what I wanted to do today was to go through the specific points of the things that we personally don't think are particularly useful to worry about when it comes to acting on camera. Right. It's been a heck of a day. I've coached 4 or 5 people, auditions and various other different things, and quite frankly, I'm a little bit, as we say in Spanish, quemado. So you're going to have to bear with me. So, and of course, look, it's empty. She's not here. So I'm just going to have to muscle through right now. Okay. Right. Let's do this. I'm going to tell you the things that I don't care about and you shouldn't care about when you're acting. Now, there's a lot of you are going to go, oh, hang on a second, I don't agree with that at all. And that's good. That's very good. If you don't agree with something, fight for it. But I will take you down, because I've already fought with all of these things, and I've fought brutally with them. One of the things that we do as actors, particularly when we're in training, is we stop listening to our common sense, and we start seeking some magic bullet, some Rosetta Stone that will decipher everything for us. You already have everything necessary to be a great, profound and authentic actor, because you already know how to... I was talking to Mirko, who I believe is here. This isn't like playing the trumpet. You weren't born a trumpet player. This is not classical ballet. You were not born a ballet dancer. This is acting, where all you have to do is to imitate real life. And if you can imitate yourself, that's already the best place to start. Right. I'm not crumbling, Matt. It's just I have to do a great deal more complicated things than normal. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to deal with, the things that you shouldn't have to worry about as an actor. And the first one is concentration. Don't worry about it. If it's important, you'll be concentrated. Don't concentrate on concentrating. I know that the first chapter of An Actor Prepares by Konstantin Stanislavski is circle of attention. Basically concentration. The issue with this is, if you're worried about concentrating, all you're going to do is be unconcentrated because you're worrying about the wrong thing. You don't have to worry about being concentrated. If something is important, you will be concentrated on it. That's all. You don't have to concentrate on concentration. It's like trying to think of, is when somebody says, don't think about elephants. All you'll do is think about elephants. Elephants on tightropes, elephants on bicycles, elephants flying. You will. That's the only thing. And if you're worried about concentrating, the last thing you will do is be concentrated. Okay? So don't worry about it. There's so many things that we are told to be concerned with, to worry about, to preoccupy ourselves, to get into our head when we're acting. And unfortunately, they've all got to do with acting and they've got nothing to do with reality. Okay? The real fact is that I don't want actors that are concentrated. I want actors that are capable of being highly distracted. I need you to be incredibly distractible. Why? There's a rule in improvisation that says you should never say no. The answer is always yes and. Well, one of the things that I see more often than not is actors who do this thing which is called blocking. When you say no, they perform that act of blocking on themselves. What we have to learn how to do is to say yes to ourselves. Now, many people will say that I make some very off-color and particularly bad jokes. I'd like to think they were funny, personally. But one of the reasons that I am compelled to say them is because I cannot resist following my own impulse. And if it's not funny, I probably won't say it. But if I think, and one other person I know will find it funny, I'll go for it. The first person we have to stop blocking is ourselves. And the first way we do that is to start allowing ourselves to be distracted. For example, I see messages coming up here. This is very, very complicated for me because I'm easy to distract. I'm highly distractible. That's one of the reasons why sometimes I think very, very quickly. And sometimes I think very, very slowly. But what we have to allow you see? You ever had that thing as an actor when you go, by the way, could you just interrupt me there? Could you just come in a little bit sooner? Thanks. Good. What's happening there is the actor's wanting somebody else to distract them. Don't wait for them. You do it. You distract yourself. You decide when that thing is going to take away your attention, distract you, whatever it might be. This is a thing that you can practice. Practice being distracted. Now, what exactly is a distraction? A distraction is when you are... What was that? A distraction, you have to be in the process of doing something to be distracted. You can't be distracted when you're passive and doing nothing. Okay? This is also the core of how comedy works. Comedy works for a great extent to bring somebody into this idea, this rising action that you have, and you're about, and then you take a fast left turn. Okay? The example I always give is drawing a bow and arrow. You draw the bow and you release it. Comedy is, what were you saying? So, this is one of those necessary skills that you have to learn. Isn't that good? You have to learn how to not concentrate. Good. I'm glad we cleared it up. Let's see with... let me just see what the commentary is here right now. Matt says, I love how Scott completely crumbles without something. No, I completely crumble when I now have to think of absolutely everything. That's my thing. Right. Second lesson of the day. Yes, I was with young Mirko, who's in Italy. This is the second lesson. We were doing The Libertine and You Will Not Like Me and all that. Mr. Kane says, Ellie, not to blink because it makes you look weak and because that advice, my eyes get all red and dry. if you are focused on something, if something is important to you, you will blink less. You will blink less. Don't worry about it, though. The reason that actors remember this and they get worried about it is because it's something that you can consciously control. And it's one of the things which is not so important. I'd rather that people were more worried about exactly what they were doing instead of what they were trying to control. Matt says, I can't wait to hear Scott speak on this. I say if I'm lying, if I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed. I blink. If I'm about to murder you, then not. People blink. People blink. People blink. Everybody blinks, apart from Mel Gibson in Braveheart, who doesn't blink. Almost any moment during the film. It's not a big issue. If something is important, if you're intent on doing something, you will blink less. When we're nervous or we're lying, and this is the other thing, actors, when they're doing acting which doesn't really work, what it's got a lot in connection with is lying. We exhibit the same gestures, the same micro gestures. We touch our nose, we clear our throat, we laugh, we look in other directions, we try to convince the other person. This is another way that you can tell that somebody's lying, is they stare deeply into their eyes to try and convince them. Another thing they'll do is they put their hands behind their back because they don't want to fidget. There's one thing that I have to say about actors is we're terrible, terrible liars. Let's see what else. Toti says, the problem is when your director tells you your performance is credible, it's true, but it doesn't work. How do you know when your performance works? Well, I'm going to get onto that. And I'll be touching those points soon. There's another thing is, they're just called a director. They're not God or something. Your criteria as an actor, or indeed in your case as a writer, should be at least as, if not more important, or more profound than theirs is. Desiree Naranjo, who is in Cork right now, says, we're full of doubts and insecurities as human beings. That's truth. That's truth, to be a mess. Yeah, embrace your mess. The mess is wonderful. The mess is the best part of us. You see, one of the things that we do in terms of acting and actors is we try to find some kind of perfection, which is folly. What we're attempting to do is to capture and repeat the most dynamic and interesting type of imperfection. That's what it's about, according to me anyway. And I think that's what we've come to. Who else we got? Acting on camera with Scott Rodriguez. I don't know what I said. Scott. Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you. Estoy de Rodriguez. That means I'm a married man at home on his own. Okay, that's the Spanish expression. To be de Rodriguez. Anyway, moving swiftly along. Right, let me see where we got to. I know some directors that would disagree about them not being God. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to say too much about them because they're going to, they've already set sail on, themselves on the road to hell. Right, the next one, which I have absolutely no interest in. And I remember being in drama school and everybody being completely obsessed with this. And it would become like this ritual before we did anything, before we did an exercise or we did any acting or anything like that. Is this relaxation? I don't care. If you're relaxed, good, but it's not important. I've seen actors go, all right, okay. Who cares? It doesn't matter. We as people, we're in tension. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't deal with your tension because it's going to hurt your back and you're going to have, neck problems. Or even Mr. Alexander, who invented the Alexander technique, the Australian actor who lost his voice until he finally discovered it because his spine, his head and skull and everything else was out of balance. Thus was born the Alexander technique, which I highly recommend as the least invasive type of... How would I deal with that? If you're dealing with chronic back pain or difficult back pain, it's the least invasive way to treat it. It's very, very gentle. Highly recommended. It's good for musicians, pianists, violinists, and anybody who has to be in a state of heightened tension for long periods of time. But for the actor, it was nice to know, but not particularly useful when it came to acting. So please, don't worry about relaxation. Now, this next one, which is something that we've talked about a lot, and you'll find us catching ourselves when we actually use these words, because they're really not very useful. So one of the things that we always try to tell people, and I remember somebody trying to tell me this a long time ago, and I didn't understand it because I wasn't given an alternative. And that's quite simply, good or bad doesn't exist. I always use the example of somebody's favorite food. What do you like to eat most? Look, some people like pizza with pineapple. And they're really weird people. But some people like it. I don't like it. But is it bad? Well, for me, yeah. But is it bad globally? No. I sometimes ask people who their favorite actor is. And somebody will go, oh, it's Kevin Spacey. Somebody go, oh, I hate Kevin Spacey. I hate Kevin Spacey and all he stands for. Okay? So, does that make him a bad actor? Or does that just make him an actor that you don't like? Because I got bad news for you. A lot of actors, perhaps even most actors, they don't like themselves as actors. That's a terrible thing to admit. They prefer other actors. We should hypothetically try to become our favorite actors, right? Wouldn't that be a weird thing? No, that would be a weird thing. Don't do that. But one of the things that happens is the people that we think are great, that we love, other people don't like. But we can all be in agreement that Kevin Spacey works, Meryl Streep works, Jim Carrey works in his in his own particular context. That the people who are consistently working, what they're doing appears to work. Now, going back to the question that Totti had, so how can you know what works? Well, are you in action? Are you very clear on what you're doing, according to the scripts and the context of the scene and the dynamic between the people who are playing it? Is it following the line of the story? And what we could possibly see is do I kind of believe it in this particular context? Am I interested in what's going on? And we're going to get to that in a second, which is a very important issue. Is do I believe what's going on? What's happening here? Do I believe it? Or do I see actors saying lines? That's a good question. Does it achieve its goals? Now, this whole concept of good or bad, then we get to this second part of it. The most important thing is, the only thing that's important is what does and doesn't work. Okay? So the question is that when we watch ourselves, afterwards, we ask ourselves, does it work? Okay? And if it doesn't work, we have to work out why. And if it does work, we can also work out that as well. That's kind of important. But we have to ask ourselves, does it work? Now, I could go into a million different reasons why something does or does not work here. Those are a whole bunch of different things. Thank you for the stars, Ellie. Love you. Right? So another way you can help us is on Facebook, you can give us stars. Curious though it may be, but that's what you can do. So, what does and doesn't work? You have to ask yourself. For example, you shoot a self-tape. You've shot something with a friend, or you're doing something on your own. Look at it. Try and put yourself one step backwards and ask yourself, does it work? Not is the acting good? Because if you're doing that, we're already screwed. Because the acting is never going to be as good as you want it to be. Never going to be as effective as you want it to be. So just forget about that straight off the bat. Just ask yourself, does it work? Now, what this means is you can use this particular philosophy when it comes to judging absolutely anything, like films or art or music. You can ask yourself, does it work? Now, there'll be some things that you do not have the criteria to judge. For example, modern jazz. I can't judge whether it works or not because I don't understand that criteria. Perhaps in modern art, I have the same problem. Perhaps, but I don't think so. This is one of the problems that we get to when we actually start using the word art and artist, because I've talked about this before, but I do not think an actor is an artist. Because if you are an artist, then why are we having this conversation? Go off and do your art. You don't need me. It's not art per se, but if we do it well enough, it can be mistaken for art. But art is never the objective, because art is nothing more than a debate whether something is bullshit or not for the most part. Just go walk around any modern art gallery and Don't look at the paintings, look at the people's faces. There's a reason why walking around in art galleries is exhausting, because you're constantly trying to find meaning, usually in chaos and entropy. And that's why it's tiring, is you're diving into and out of worlds, very often worlds that you have to invent in that particular moment in time. It's incredibly tiresome. Right, so good and bad doesn't exist. It's only what works and what doesn't work. Right, Totti asks, could an actor be considered good or better when he can play different roles? I'm not sure if the correct word in English is roles. Roles, I understand it. Could an actor be considered good or better when he can play different roles? The real answer is who cares? Why does being good or better? You want to be effective and competent. Good and better is debatable. Effective and competent is not. It really isn't. You see, so much of acting training is like stage combat with rapier and dagger. It's choreographed. It's safe. It follows certain understood routines, movements of attacks and parries, of feints and ripostes. The issue with acting for camera, and I'm speaking specifically about acting for camera, is every single shot is different. Every single lighting setup is different. The dynamic of every single moment in a scene is different. You don't need stage combat. What you need is mixed martial arts. That's why we have to continually simplify what we're doing and play that dynamic. Because being competent and effective is much more important than being great. You might be called great, but that's not the objective. Because if it is the objective, I got bad news for you. You're going to fail. The one thing that we cannot be is good. The more we try to be good, the worse we get. Don't ask me why. It's just the way it is. When people play football, when you've got 22 people on the field, they're not trying to be good footballers. They're trying to score a goal. When the Formula One race car driver is going as fast as he can down the straightaway, he's not trying to be a great driver. He's trying to win the race. And we have to consider ourselves a little bit like that when it comes to when we're acting on camera, is to say, what do I need to do to get this done? Okay? That's the simple hammer on the anvil thing I'm talking about there. Okay, we get on to our next one. Now, this next one I'm going to bring up, people are going to find disturbing. Maybe even call it heresy. But I'm going to put it there anyway. You ready? Stop worrying about character. Character doesn't exist. Character is a convention established between audience and the fictional piece to say that this person saying these words in this context represents this other thing, which is not real. It's one of the most curious things that we have. We go see a movie. We go to the theater. We listen to a radio play. And we know that there are actors doing it, that they are performing this thing. We know it's not real. This is something that Bertolt Brecht called aesthetic distance. This is what's necessary between the audience and the narrative to create a safe sense of story. Now, when we break narrative distance, not the aesthetic distance, when we break that, it's because we witness or hear or see something which appears to be completely real in relationship to human beings or probably animals. I guess it could happen to plants now as well. But if we see, for example, the most extreme version, and this is why you rarely see it in a film, of breaking the aesthetic distance, is somebody being cruel to an animal. This is even worse than being cruel to a person. We see people being tortured in movies and TV shows every day, but goodness gracious, the minute somebody would torture a dog or a cat, that immediately breaks any form of aesthetic distance. We're incapable of now judging this as a piece of fiction because it touches us on a very profound level. This is when you see something which appears to be real sex, or you see nudity which is uncalled for. This is also when we get to the concept of the pornography of misery and emotions. This is where you feel something but there's no narrative content to it. This is what that moment in the movie when there's a fight, but you don't care what happens in the fight. It's just a whole bunch of people jumping around in the most spectacular way, edited and sound and music and everything else, but it's meaningless to you. It's exactly the same as a sex scene for the most part in the majority of films, because you go, okay, so what do we learn here? And the answer is usually not very much. So, stop worrying about character. Characters don't actually exist. They're defined by what you do. Tendencies of the way you do it, the way you sound, and the way you move. But the character, when you're acting on camera, has to start as close to you as possible. In the theatre, we're used to putting on this mask, this aesthetic distance mask of somebody who's very different from us. And very often in a play, we have to play several different people. That's just the nature of everybody who's ever worked in theatre. We've all played 2 or 3 different roles in the same play. The audience accepts that, and we do the necessary thing to make ourselves appear physically and to sound different. On camera, we have to get as close to us as possible, because all there ever is our way of moving and our way of speaking. Now, that's not to say we're not going to change that, but those are things that I call accents. Verbal accents, vocal accents, cultural accents, physical accents, and professional accents. Now, what are all those things? Well, a policeman moves differently from a ballerina, who moves differently from an opera singer, who moves differently from a guy who's working in a market, to somebody who's selling meat. A butcher moves differently from a seamstress. All of these people have various different, we could say, accents that relate specifically to their profession or the sort of person they are. It's all very, very different. But this is not character. We sometimes mistake that for character, but character is actually defined by what we do, which in all of our lives we have been angry, we have been sad, we have been determined, we have been weak, we have been lazy, we've been excited, we've been depressed, we've been everything. We've been Hamlet, we've been Lear, we've been Bella and Twilight. We've been all of it. So who are we? Well, it depends. So stop worrying about character and start thinking about, how am I going to approach and face the thing that I've got to work on right now? Here's an interesting thing. This is the next one. This was a real revelation to me a few years ago. I realized that everybody, sooner or later, does acting in their lives. And there's a particular moment that we all have done, some more than others. And quite frankly, it is when we are absolutely at our best as actors. And it's this. You will never be a better actor than when you're pulling a prank. I barely need to explain this. Think of the last time you pulled a prank. You played a joke on someone. And you were convincing them that something was real, which wasn't. Do you remember how good you were? Do you remember how well you sold it? How you actually managed to convince them that something was real that wasn't? Why can't we do that when we're acting? Distraction again. So, as you can see, think about that. Say something to somebody that's not real. They believe you, right? That's what we should be doing when we're acting. It seems so simple, so incredibly easy, but we somehow manage to raise everything up to these ridiculous levels, and thus make it almost impossible to pull off. Right, and finally, this almost warrants me getting rid of all the other ones. There is a reason for this. Because I think this is the biggest obsession that all actors have. And it's part of most acting training. And it's this. No one cares what you feel. No one. Nobody cares about your emotion. Nobody cares that you're crying. Nobody cares that you're laughing. They only care about what you are doing and what you want. That's all. They don't care what you feel about. Actors, we like to feel things. Why? Because it makes us feel like we're acting. We feel different. And from the theatre, that's the only way that we could possibly know that we were doing any acting, because we wouldn't feel normal. We wouldn't feel the way that we felt before we started. So we became obsessed with emotion. The other thing is that everybody started to think, well, if what I'm watching makes me emotional, that means they must be emotional to me. No, of course not. We don't care to see anybody being emotional. In fact, we find it kind of disgusting. It kind of repels us. It's repulsive. If you see somebody weeping in the street, it's a very simple binary decision you have to make. Am I going to go and speak to this person and ask if they're okay? Or, which most of us will do 99% of the time, will I just ignore them and move on? For some evolutionary reason, that person is that we don't know, that's in a state of emotional whatever, is we find kind of repugnant. It's not useful for us. There's nothing that we can really do about it. In fact, we don't trust it. That's one of the reasons why when we're moved, we hide our tears. That's why when we're angry, we attempt not to show our anger, because we're actually trying to get what we want across, instead of the other person being intimidated, scared, or manipulated by the way that we appear to be feeling. We suppress those things. The actor, for some peculiar reason, and I've done it too, we look for it because we think it will make us look good. We think it will make us appear to be better actors, and it won't. It just won't. Nobody cares. That's the extraordinary thing, is that nobody gives a damn about it. It's very weird like that. Right. If there's any questions, just let me know. Finally, and this is the last one I want to finish up with today, and then I can open up for questions if there's no more questions. It's this. Tell your gurus to go fuck themselves. Seriously. Tell them to go and take a running jump. Now, why do I say this? You know, because people go, Scott, are you a guru? Do you want people to say that? Well, yeah, you should. Fight them. Tussle with them. Spar with them. Challenge their ideas. Actually, listen to yourself and go, does this really work, what they're suggesting to me? Is this useful? Does this make me feel bad? Am I being asked to do something that I don't want to do? Really? Is this wrong? Do I find this offensive morally? Did somebody just tell me to take my shirt off? And they said, well, that you need to do this if you want to be a great actor. No. Please respect yourself more than that. It's not worth it. There's only one you, okay? You have no idea how much time Assumpta and I have had spent having to deprogram actors who've come from other schools with their heads messed up, obsessed with emotion, torturing themselves, thinking that screaming and crying and all of these desperate states to be in is what acting is about. It's not. It's the simplest thing. It's asking somebody, do you want a cup of coffee? Take it from there and let's work up. Let's not start at Hamlet and fall down. One of the things if there's anything that I can leave actors with that I work with, is for them to feel free to challenge anything that's going on. Challenge anything that I'm suggesting or anybody else is suggesting. It's so important. Actors, they come with their chests pulled open and their hearts exposed, and they offer them to you. Not all of them, but some of them do. They're looking to be saved. And some sons of bitches out there will take that heart, throw it on the floor and stamp on it. And they'll tell you that you have to be with them until the end of time for you to be able to improve. This is the difference between science and religion. This is why our book that we've been working on, which if we get a minute we'll be able to finish this year, is called Killing Macbeth. The End of Superstition and the Science of Acting, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to make acting, place acting in the 21st century and try and work out exactly what it is and how we can relate to it. Don't you know? But this is a very, very important thing. Whether you're a younger actor or an older actor, you have to challenge the things that are suggested to you. And look, if they work, if they are effective, if you challenge them and they still stand up, then perhaps we should listen to them. And if they don't, well, perhaps we should throw them away. The other thing I have to tell you is stop worshipping at the altar of the ancestor. I am sick of seeing people who studied with the guy who studied with Sanford Meisner. What's happened is magic is transmitted through his breath. Did his DNA rub off on his pupils and now they possess his knowledge? That now that they're capable of doing exactly what Meisner did? Is that what they want? Is that what they want? Because that's what they're telling you. Oh yeah, he studied. Yeah, he used to be. Yeah, he was the best friend with the personal trainer of the chauffeur of the guy who once met X. Right? It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Michael Chekhov was a student of Stanislavski. Then you have students of Then you have Strasberg. Strasberg, who created his entire method out of the later books of Stanislavski, who at the end of his life said, please ignore those books. I was wrong. It's bizarre, isn't it? That we as actors, the first thing that we don't pay attention to is the heritage of acting training and actors. We don't know about it. Yes, most actors, they'll know a hell of a great deal more about, league football than they will about their own particular profession. It's bizarre, okay? But I understand why. That we have to stop thinking and acting like a bunch of amateurs and start having a professional point of view on these things. So, tell your gurus to go from themselves. Hopefully I haven't been cut off on any one of our other live streams because they're very, very sensitive about bad language these days. So, those are the things I specifically wanted to talk about today. That I wanted to say, don't worry about concentration. Don't worry about relaxation. Good and bad doesn't exist. It's only what does and doesn't work. Stop worrying about character because that will come through the thing that you're doing. You'll never be a better actor than you are when you're pulling a prank. Try it. Trust me. You'll have a great revelation when you see that. And finally, of all of those things, because now of all of these things, the most important thing is nobody cares about what you feel. All right? This is very complicated to do because this is not how I set this up. But these are the things which you don't have to worry about. Okay. I just wanted to get that off my chest. Thank you very much, everybody who's been here tonight. Thanks for joining in. I have no idea where Assumpta is. I just wanted to take this time because normally on this particular, on a Thursday, we review people's show reels. And I wanted to take this time to because I really enjoyed doing that with Assumpta. And it's always great to have 2 points of view. Matt says, I really do love you, Scott. There, I said it. Well, I love you too, Matt. Both individually and as a group. It's very, very important for us. Look, I'm sitting here and you guys are all there. The only difference between me and you is time. That's all. I'm just you tomorrow. I'm just you with 15,000 hours of teaching actors and looking at them over and over and over again. Right? Coming back here, Crystal says, Gonzalo, welcome. Let me see, this is a good one. We need to talk about this emotion thing. While I think it's often overdone, I sometimes need to see it in a performance. Maybe it's me because I get so involved in a movie and the people I totally ugly cry. I ugly cry too. I'm the biggest ugly crier ever. I want to feel from what's happened. When on stage, it's difficult for me controlling emotion because I'm so involved. I know too much is bad, but shouldn't there be some? Yes. Excellent point, Crystal. Thank you for bringing it up. It's not that there's no emotion. There is emotion. Just don't worry about it. Just don't make it the reason for the scene. Look, as I said, a side effect of being extremely competent and adept at what you're doing, to fulfill the objective of the job, to do it with incredible competence and elegance, the side effect of that is art. So when you are in action, playing what you're supposed to play in the particular scene, the side effect will be emotion, just like in life. Emotion is not the objective in life. In fact, if you try to be happy, you'll end up being miserable. That thing I always like saying is, if you only do the easy things in life, life will be difficult. But if you do the difficult things in life, life will be very, very easy. And it's the same thing with acting, is we have to stop concentrating on this emotional moment and deal with what we're attempting to achieve. Now, emotion will happen. In fact, it must happen. But it's not the objective of the scene. If you're trying to say goodbye to your son for the last time, you want to be positive, and you're already projecting on the loss, the space, the fact that this can't be happening, that you'll never see them again, right? You need to freeze this perfect moment in time that's filled with utter misery, hope, darkness, all of those other different things is the objective. The side effect of that is emotion. But if the objective is emotion, we're no longer interested. We're no longer interested. Now, talking about ugly crying, one of the things I've seen a lot are those amazing videos of soldiers coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq and surprising their families, whether at home or in their schools or the place where they're working. Why are those things so moving? Is because it's the realization of unspoken hope and never mentioned dark, dark fears realized in a single moment. And why do we find that moving? Is because it's almost like I don't want to say why I find it moving, but it's one of those things which I think is very useful for us to, when we feel those things, is to stop and go, why do I feel that? It's usually because we are filled with something that's so powerfully useful for ourselves, our families, society, and our civilization, that our DNA is saying, this is what it's supposed to feel like. This is what you're supposed to do. This is the correct state to exist in. It's peculiar, because I suppose we could call it a state of grace. That's pretty powerful. It's the same thing you get when somebody's getting married. When you see a couple getting married, I weep like a baby, because there is enormous grace there. And people often ask me, and this is something I want to deal with next week if I can, which is really the most important things we do need to think about, which is about action and obstacle and everything else, is that we could say that anger comes from wanting something that you can't have, and the two things rise, the action and the obstacle, and it creates this other thing, which is anger. Somebody asked me once, how could I then possibly define something which is positive emotion like love? And after meditating for a little while, I came to the conclusion that love is the perfect combination of truth, as you understand it, and hope. If you concentrate, if you think about it, if you imagine truth and you imagine hope and you let yourself go there, what you're going to feel is love. Try it. It works. Because I was worried about that we could only come up with this formula for negative emotions. Saskia says, I was going to say, we don't deliberately play the emotions in life. If anything, we try to hide, control it. If we do deliberately play emotion, we're either manipulating, so it's not real emotion, or a psychopath. Oh, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? Absolutely true. I say that it's one of those debates that we always have between us all, is exactly why do we want to cry when we're acting? Real people don't want to cry. The only people who want to cry are 4-year-olds, professional football players, and lovers who are attempting to do a sort of emotional blackmail on their partners. And actors. It seems to be the actor that's really very interested in showing off those tears, because nobody wants to show their tears. This is a sign of weakness. It's a sign of untrustworthiness. We're suspicious of tears, and that's why we get rid of them. But actors know we have these perfect tears fall. Nobody does that. And they sting. There's probably a reason why tears sting our faces. And you know the mucus in your nose? That's not mucus. That's excess tears. That's what happens. That's where it's coming from. It's coming from these two ducts that come from your eyes, from your tear ducts. This is interesting, because I'm gonna finish in a second. That Desiree and Crystal say hope is love and love is hope. I like to think that love is truth plus hope. That's the recipe for that. And I think this is a perfect moment to end right now. I've been talking for about 50 minutes. It's been an absolute delight to have everybody here today. And remember, I'm sure you all are, to subscribe to the channels. And if you're interested in what we do on Patreon, you can go see it here. It's in Spanish, but one of the things we'll do, if things pick up in English, we'll set up one in English as well, because I know that we have people out there, for example, Matt, Saskia. There's people who are part of the family who are native English speakers, and there's a lot of people out there. Desiree, you owe me a conversation. We're supposed to talk, young lady. And I can always depend on Gonzalo to bring it down to his level. Lope is hove. Lope is hove. Hove is lope. Thank you, Gonzalo. And thank you very much, everybody. My name's Scott Cleverdon. Remember, you can find us on our YouTube channel. We've got all our playlists there. If you look for the ones in English, you don't speak any Spanish, you'll be able to find all the things that we've done that go all the way back to March, April of last year. And you can have a look at our webpage, which is familiadecine.com. And remember, we're very easy to find. You can always send us emails if you've got a question or if there's anything you need to know. You can send it to me directly, which is at scott@familiadecine.com. And I'm very willing to, listen to anybody and help anybody out with any particular thing they need to know about. Because one of the reasons that we've been doing what we've been doing is we would like to think that what we're teaching is we're not reinventing the wheel, but we are trying to work out what the wheel's for. And I don't think anybody who has found anything truthful and effective about something like acting should really try to hide it. I think it's really our responsibility to try and share this with people. And I'm very, very interested in people staying healthy, staying mentally healthy, which is very important. We as actors, we're already different. That's why we are what we are. And it's very, very important that we don't begin to cannibalize our own sense of self in an attempt to achieve something which doesn't necessarily, its value doesn't warrant its cost in many ways. Because at the end of the day, we're not curing cancer. We're not saving the world. We have a very important and valuable job and profession to do and pursue. But none of that is more important than our own sanity and the health and well-being of our friends and family. That's very, very important. And I think that's one of the reasons why this idea of the Familia de Cine, the film family, has grown up so organically and makes such logical sense. We're so happy to say that there's, I believe, 18 people from all of these cats that are here. Some of them who are here today. I know I've got Oscar, and I know Saskia that was there as well, of these people who went to go work on a movie this week. Imagine that. It was kind of our fault. And their fault for being with us. That's just great. There's nothing that makes us more happy than that. Seriously. It's a dream realized. Anyway, thanks very much. And we'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully we're going to have something a little bit special. Still have to work out exactly what, but it's been great to see you all here. Thanks for dropping by. My name's Scott Cleverdon, and as we always say, mañana, it means tomorrow, more and better. But I'll do it in Spanish. Mañana, más y mejor. Well, this is a little after show. So normally I go, hey, Assumpta, how you doing? She go, I'm fine, and she's not here. It's terrible. So, so tomorrow, this is the thing. I would highly recommend to everybody, if they can, if they're in Madrid right now, to go and see The Play That Goes Wrong. If you haven't seen that play, please go and see it. It's fantastic. Okay, I'd go and see it again. If you're in Madrid, send me a message. I'll go with it. I'll go see it with you because I love it. It's so funny. Anyway, then it's got one of my ex-students in it, Carla Postigo, who's a wonderful actress. This has been a little bit odd this week on the grounds that Assumpta has been off shooting. So she's been off doing that thing that most acting teachers don't do, which is to work professionally as an actor. That's what she's done. You saw it, Edu. How was it? It's fabulous, right? It's great. It's great. I concur. Yeah, go see it. It's so good. Maybe you and I should just go see it again. We'll have a date, you and me, Edu. So, so these 2 weeks have been a little bit peculiar because it's been a very intense and very, very sort of like the days have been completely full for her. She's been working from, 8 in the morning until 8 at night. It's been a solid 12-hour day, and it's not like it happens on a beach. It's 19th century with plague and people dying of syphilis and heart attacks and everything you can imagine in the 19th century, where the life expectancy was between 29 and 30 years old, if you can imagine that. So that's what she's been doing. So it's been a little bit complicated of late. But anyway, so we're going to keep driving on and driving forward. And thanks very much for everybody coming to see this tonight. It was great to see you all. And finally, you're all awesome. Yeah, that works.